Recently, Microsoft introduced a new function called VSTACK, which is, on the face of it, a very simple function, but it can be used in combination with other things for lots of really interesting scenarios. So VStack stands for vertical stack. And the most common use case is something along these lines. Let's say that across your workbook, you have several different tables, all of which contain data that's similar but not the same. And you realize that you want to combine these into one big table. So let's say that the red table is for the November data, the blue table is for the December data, and the orange table is for the January data, for example. And you decide to make one big table out of these. Now, most people would simply go in, copy and paste these together. But, as we've talked about, VStack, or vertical stack, is a really simple function. All you do is you say, hey, let's take array number 1 and array number 2 and array number 3 and however many you've got, and vertically stack them on top of each other. Which ends up looking a little bit like this, right? You get one big table with all the data in it. Now, as you look at that, you may start to ask some questions about what happens if there are duplicates between the tables, or what happens when I want certain things but not other elements. Well, VStack is really flexible to be combined with other functions, like the unique function, what happens if there are duplicates, or stacking it together so that the headers stack on top of some filtered data set. And one more consideration for VStack is that if the tables don't all contain the same number of columns, then you'll get the NA error message in any cells that should have been filled in. So another tool that we can use is the IFNA function to be able to put something else in its place, or in fact nothing for that matter, so that it looks a little bit cleaner. So let's go ahead and take a look at this in the real world. This one's very simple. As you can see, I've got the same set of headers over here in columns I through M that I do in columns C through G. And it's pretty clear that I'd like to stack up the people who registered for event 1 with the people who registered for event 2. So I click on the cell I8, I click on the Formulas tab at the top of the screen, and I use the Lookup and Reference drop-down menu. And VStack should come in alphabetical order in between VLOOKUP and wrap calls. Again, the V in VStack simply meaning that we can vertically stack these elements. So as you might imagine, there is also an HStack for horizontal stacking. We'll do that in a different video. So here we have VStack. I click on it, and it simply asks which things do you want to stack up. So I'll go ahead with array number 1 and highlight Nicole Vietti down and across to January 24th. And for array number 2, I'll highlight from Tom Rossi down and across to March 20th. And all you do is you click OK, and that dynamic range spills down, and you can see that everybody who's in the first table or the second table shows up in the right-hand table. Over here on the right-hand side, you'll notice that dates do not bring their formatting over, so you will need to highlight those cells and simply format them as dates in order for that data to look right. Now, as I said, it's very easy to combine VStack with other functions. Here's an example of that. You can see here that I do not have the headers set up at the top of my page yet. And over here, you're seeing that I'm going to decide to take this data set and filter it down so that it's only the people who work in Hammermill. So what I'm going to choose to VStack here is the headers on top of a filtered data set. So in cell AD5 over here on the right-hand side, I can go to my Formulas tab at the top of the screen, and I'm going to VStack the top row with the filtered data set. So I'm going to look up and reference and choose VStack. And for array number 1, I'm going to highlight first name through registration date. But then, for array number 2, I don't just want to highlight the range of cells that contains all these people's information. I instead want to filter that data set down. So I begin typing the word filter into the array 2 entry here, and I'm going to choose to put in an open parentheses. Now, I like to advise people that if you've never used a function like filter, for example, in this situation before, make sure that after you type it in and you put in the open parens, that you come to the top of the screen, into the formula bar, and click on that word filter, and it will walk you through the process of filtering the data set. So now you can see that the function arguments dialog box is for the filter function. It takes the array, so I will highlight from Nicole Vietti down and across to January 24th. And then in the include field right here, I'm going to choose the column of data that includes all the offices. So X6 through X17 set equal to cell AB6, which is where I've got the word hammermill. So in other words, take all of these cells right here and identify the ones in which the X column is set to hammermill. So you'll notice here Nicole Vietti and Hulin Young are not showing up in the results over here on the right, but instead Carmen Cote is immediately showing up first. Now I go up to the top of the screen and click on VSTACK, and this is the complete function. Take the first set of cells up at the top, and then the filtered data set from below, then click OK, and you see that it fills in beautifully. Only those employees who work at Hammermill are showing up on the right-hand side. I can then use the Hammermill drop-down menu and choose Brandeis, or use the Hammermill Brandeis drop-down menu and choose Edgewood, and get different sets of people.